morning, afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're having a nice weekend. Hope you're having a nice day. Hope you're having a nice time, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. My name's Ed. This is The Shed. Welcome back to Ed's Shed. Right, today I want to talk about mainly aimed at the new bike riders, the new guys. You've got your first bike and you're all singing, dancing. You've got a nice helmet. You've got some jacket, trousers, boots, gloves. Hopefully you've got some decent bike gear and you're ready to go. Sorry about that. Right, that isn't where it ends. When you've got a new bike, you're just starting out, your bike's lovely, you're proud of it, you look at it and you go, you're falling in love with this machine in front of you. It's what you want, and you love it because it's getting you about, and you like the sound, and you like you like the idea that you can just get on it and go and all that. But, and here's the but, get to know your bike, get to know it, get to know what oil it takes. They don't all take the same oil. You've got 2-stroke or 4-stroke, find out about the oils, find out about the fluids that bike takes, and that includes brake fluid. Check your brake fluid. If you've got a leak, if your brake fluid, if you're topping it up all the time, it's very likely you've got a leak. And if you've got a leak on the brake fluid, you're going to find you ain't going to stop too well one day. But oils, engine oils, and the chain lubricant oil, it's still an oil, it's chain lubricant. Find out about these things, because you're gonna have to do it one day. You're gonna have to top the oil up or change the oil or whatever. Filters, all motorcycle filters aren't the same. They might look the same, but they're not. Check what motorcycle filter you need. It's easy enough to find. Just Google has has such an amount of knowledge about motorcycles you never believe. But find out, because you're going to have to do it, and then find out how to do it. Find out how to change the oil. Usually it's one simple little, they call it a sump plug. It's a bolt underneath the engine. You undo that and poof, all the oil comes out. Make sure that's coming out. Ideally, you'd want to warm the engine up, stop the engine, and then undo that plug, because then the engine's hot, the oil's hot, and it's more liquidy, if you like. It's not so stodgy. So yeah, oils, completely important. Tyre pressures. Find out what your tyre pressures are. And again, they probably won't be the same back and front, so find out what they are. If you've got different size tyres back and front, then more likely it won't be the same back and front. But it is. But find out, because it's important. It's important to the steering. It's important to tyre wear, so how long it lasts, how long your tyre will last. It's important. Find out about it. Do the homework on your bike. Check the tread. Now, last time I looked, if you had a coin, with, he gets coins out to have a look. Alright, I'm going to show you that one, because that is an example in my pocket at the time. Now, if your tyre wear, if your tread on your tyre is, if you can see that rim around the edge there, if you're down to that, you're way past illegal. You're way past illegal. I'd say in between those two marks. So if it's a euro or a pound, in between those two marks there, in the copper bit or the gold bit, whatever you like, I'd say that's about time when you want to start looking at changing your tyre. There is a guide. I think it's on a 2p piece in England. There's a dotted circle around the outside, and I think it's that circle. If your tyre's down to that depth, then you need to replace your tyre. Most tyres have a wear mark on them of some kind or another. So have a look. Tyres are the thing that keeps you off the floor. Tyres are the thing that keeps you from sliding down the road. Tyres are the thing that are just so important. So find out about them. When you're buying a tyre, find out what types of tyre it takes, what makes it of tyre, what manufacturers of tyre. Find out different sizes. Sometimes you get different sizes for the same wheel. So find out. What I did was, when I had my Triumph a couple of years back now, I didn't know what sort of tyre to have. I found out that there was a certain manufacturer, who was it, Avon? Might have been Avon, who made a tyre for my bike. And when I went to the tyre shop, they said, oh yeah, you need this, they're a pair of this, blah, 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 blah. Well, I weren't really sure. I didn't know. It sounded to me like the guy didn't really know what he was talking about. So I phoned Avon. I just phoned them up. I looked in the, I googled the number, phoned up, got through to the technical department and said, I've got this motorcycle, what tyres and what pressures do I need? And boom, straight away he came back, yes sir, he said, you need this sort of tyres, they come at that pressure on the front and that pressure on the back. He said, don't go by what the guy in the shop says. He said, because they're wrong. He says you need this and that. They look like a mixture, but they're not. That's the ideal tyres for your bike. So don't listen to Joe Blogs down the road. Don't listen to the fella in the tyre shop. Find out yourself. Do the homework on your tyres, because they're very, very important. God, I sound like your dad then, didn't I? Fuel wise, how many miles do you get out of the tank if you're wringing the nuts off it? I mean, how many miles do you get out of the tank if you are wringing the absolute crud out of it? You've got to find out, because if you've got, I don't know, 50 miles in the tank, you wring it till it's red lining all the time, and it can only do 30 miles, then you're going to run out of juice pretty fast. So make sure you know where petrol stations are, because if you're going to run out of petrol, you're going to be pushing your bike up the bloody road. So find out how far the tank goes on, how many miles you can get out of that tank. It's very important. Don't ever guess it. Don't guess it. And if you've got a fuel gauge on your bike, it's not accurate. Just don't say that, oh, a fuel gauge says I've got half a tank, I can do another 100 miles or whatever. Don't believe it. Once you get to about, I don't know, I'd say a third of a tank, not even in the red yet, but a third of a tank, go and fill it up, because as soon as it hits that red line, it'll go down so fast and you will end up walking your bike somewhere. So find out. The bulbs, find out what bulbs. You're gonna bust bulbs. Find out what bulbs it goes through. Headlamp bulbs differ. Mine will be different from yours, will be different from the next guy, so find out. Brake light bulbs, is it LED? Is it a normal bulb? Find out. Can you fit an LED in there? Will it work? Find out, because LEDs supposedly last longer than normal bulbs. If they do or not, I don't know. There's a lot of bikes you can't put an LED in because the bike isn't set up to run it voltage wise. I won't go into that because that's very complicated and it just takes a bit of pen and paper to understand it. Basically it's all about voltages and what your bike puts out and what these bulbs need and all that kind of jazz. Find out about it if you want, but tune in to somebody else for that, because I ain't going to do pen and paper stuff. Suspension, check your suspension. If your suspension bottoms out, what I mean by bottoms out is if you go over a bump and it goes, it shudders every time you get that bump, then your suspension is probably knackered. It's probably on the arse end of good. So look into changing that if you have to. If you've got a monoshock, which means one shock on the back end, wherever it is, it's usually a beefier thing, but you can adjust these shocks. All shocks on bikes are adjustable, so look into doing that. Even the front forks, most of the time they're adjustable, so look into doing it. Just look into doing it, but find out about it. It's all about educating yourself about the bike you've got. Don't just think you've got all the gear, you've got the bike, that's it, because it doesn't end there. It really doesn't. you've bought a bike, you bought the gear, or someone's bought you the bike, someone's bought you the gear, but either way, you have now become a motorcyclist. And part of being a motorcyclist is knowing about your bike. That's the rules. Sorry. Find out about the simpler things. How to adjust your chain. What are the chain limits? It's usually about 3/4 of an inch or 19 millimeters that you can adjust the chain, move the chain at its tightest point. Find out what the tightest point is. To do that, you have to have the back wheel off the floor, which is a pain in the arse if you've only got a side stand, but it can be done. Usually by a jack of some kind round one side, leave it on the side stand and just lift it up so you can spin the back wheel. You spin the back wheel just ever so slowly, and you keep moving the chain until you find where it's at its tightest point. Because chains don't wear regularly, they don't wear the same all the way around. If it's at its tightest point, that's when you do your adjustment. If you do it at the loosest point, then your tightest point will be rock solid and it will snap. No doubt about it. So find out about that. Find out about your chain lube, the chain lubrication, and you'll have to play that one by ear, whichever one suits you. We all have different favourites of chain lube, so find out yourself what size chain it is. Find out what size chain it is, because you're going to have to replace this one day. Write it down. I don't know, make a note on your smartphone. Do anything you like, but make a note of it. What size chain you have. And the sprockets. You can Google all this information about your bike, but what size sprockets it has. Different teeth, front and back. If you use your bike for work, not for work, for commuting, then you won't need it set up for racing, fast pullaways and all that game. So the size of the front sprocket will change, and the size of the rear sprocket will change for that. If you're one of these guys who race around the streets and you're the guy that has to be at the red line every time, then your sprockets will be different as well. Find out. Just find out. Said about the bulbs, find out what bulbs you need, indicators, brake bulbs, headlamp bulbs, the whole lot. Cables. Very neglected. Cables are very, very neglected. You've probably got a clutch cable, a speedo cable. If you haven't, a lot of these new bikes haven't. They're hydraulic, so you're not going to worry about it. But if you've got a cable, you have to make sure that cable has oil in it, because otherwise it won't last very long. It will start fraying and it will break. And when it breaks, it's a pain in the arse. Just trust me, it is a pain in the arse. You have to learn how to change gear without a clutch, which is very, very dangerous. It's bad for your engine. It's bad for the clutch in the engine. It's bad for your engine itself. It's bad for you because you're panicking. It's just bad all round. Don't do it. I think that's about it. So it's just a short video like that. Just find out about your bike. You have to ask yourself, when you look at that machine in front of you, you have to ask yourself, how well do I know this bike? All right. Google is one way. Google is one way of doing it. The other way, of course, is to buy a manual. Now, these are made by Haynes. Haynes have been around for about 900 years, give or take a minute or two. And they're all right. They're very, very good. I mean, they're all right for basic stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a proficient mechanic in any way, shape or form. Basic stuff is within my grasp, but other than that, I'm knackered. But a Haynes manual, they're cheap. This one was 20 quid, which is cheap. Buy a Haynes manual for your bike. If you sell the bike, get rid of the bike, whatever, give the manual with it. Give the guy a manual with it. And when I said to you about taking notes, in the back of all the Haynes manuals, you have a section called notes. And what you should do is, when you can tell this in new, can't you? When you find out about this, that and the other, or you think that these tyres are better than other tyres or whatever, write them down in there. So next time you go into a dealership or whatever you want for your tyres or whatever, you say to him, right, I've remembered what they are. They're my favourites. I want them. Because you might put a pair on next time that are different to the ones, and you've, oh, what a load of shit. And you can't just go down and say, I don't like these, you know, take them off. You just pay good money for them, so you're going to use them. But then when it comes to replace them again, you go back. But make a note of everything. Make a note of when you've done oil changes. Make a note of dates, times, amounts, blah, blah, blah. Because when it comes to selling that bike, because you're going to sell that bike eventually, more than likely, if you've got a note of all this, the guy can see that you've really looked after the bike, and he'll think, yeah, you know what, that bike's been looked after. That's better than the one that's the same down the road that's got nothing on it and I've got no history on it. It's all about the history, really. So keep a note of what you've done. I think that's about it. We're going to keep that short to 15 minutes, just over 15 minutes. And this is entitled, How Well Do You Know Your Bike? Mainly at beginners, really, but, you know, even people like me who are older than that hill over there. You must have a hill near you. Right, I'll catch you later. Stay away from the loonies. There's enough out there. Don't become one of them. See you soon.